So my name is Alfred Bieler. Thanks, David, for picking specifically the profile photo that you've picked for my title slide. On the photo, I'm sort of holding my fingers like this because it's really showing how much I know about Redis. So that's why they picked that specific photo. But at least I know about some other bits and pieces. So hopefully I can tell you a bit about Google and about how we love Redis, amongst other things. So there you can see my knowledge there. It's a real privilege to be here. Thank you very much. I'm aware that your time is valuable. You could have done other things. And I really want to add some value to your time. So with that, I have been at Google roughly about the amount of time that Redis have been in existence. So, of course, when I started there, I didn't know about it. But over the years, I've seen more and more of it becoming more and more prevalent. And, of course, it's remarkable to be able to spend some time with an audience that know and love Redis, or at least are dabbling with it, if not using it already. So the obligatory agenda slide that we were all forced to use, you'll see it's got some start and middle and end. Luckily, that was planned. Stuff goes wrong. You've seen what happens to the AV here today, and the analog converter died, and he was in the critical path, and he died. And there are so many other beautiful stories. I mean, the matchmaking story was about fixing things and sometimes breaking things. And some of the other conversations I had was about people that had stuff that worked and then didn't work. And some of the best case studies is stuff that used to work and then stopped working. And I've got plenty of my own stories. I'm sure you've got some as well. I'll quickly tell you one. I once played with IoT many years ago to try and build my own home automation system that controlled the heating and everything else. It went so badly wrong. At one point, I got a call from my daughter while I was in the US. And she phoned me, and it's sort of, 3 a.m. in the morning there, and I'm not quite sure why my phone's ringing. And I pick it up, and it's my daughter saying, "Daddy, all the lights are on, and the boiler is on, everything is on in the house. We can't turn anything off." And then it's sort of remote SSH into a Raspberry Pi trying to patch things and so on. It's nasty. But things break, right? That's the essence of what life and what computing brings. And I'm fascinated about the story about how the founders of Google, Larry and Sergey, started Google. It's a familiar story that you've heard many times. They rented the garage of Susan, and Susan is now heading up YouTube. I always like that bit where she started off as a landlord and they ended up running YouTube. I think that's sort of encouraging. I also think why she would have been successful as a landlord is she charged $1,700 for Larry and Sergey per month for the garage. I think that's quite steep, right? For that, I'd like to get a flat or something, right? But one of the things that Larry and Sergey found in those early days of Google was that they had things that didn't work the way they expected to. And it turned out to be one of the machines that they had, they had 10 or so machines at the time in the garage. And one of the machines was just inconsistent. It every now and again either dropped some packets or just misfired in some other way. And to me, what's fundamental decision that they made then was rather than say, okay, throw out the machine, put in a new machine. Maybe it was partially because they were students without money. They said, let's keep this machine in the network, and let's rather build our software to expect the failure. And I think that's really interesting. And I think if I look at Google's network infrastructure, I've been privileged to be in one of our data centers. That's not me with my tattoos removed. It's one of my colleagues. But if you go to our data centers, that's not an uncommon look, that there's our machines that's being pulled out. You can imagine, just statistically, if you've got 1 million machines with a mean time between failure of less than 1 million, then you will have machines that's always broken, right? That's just what life does. And if you build your network and your operating system and your systems to totally expect that, that's sort of the cattle versus pet conversation, then you can build much better applications that scale much better and are much more resilient. And that was sort of one of the early insights that I think fundamentally formed Google. So without going into the detail, but our network is something that's spectacular. So we are own our own network across the world, which is unusual. None of the other providers does the same. And therefore, we can fully control how that works. But we learned that we can't just rely on very expensive switches from the well-known vendors. We are building our own network gear. We've built our own network protocols. We've got, remarkably, we buy the cheapest hard disks we can get, because we realize that if you buy the most expensive ones, they also go broken at some point in time. So rather buy a cheap one, you save some money, but again, plan that they will fail and that your application can deal with that. And that allows us to sort of build infrastructure at a scale and at a cost that can compete with our competitors, right? And one of the unique things that came out of our early design of how Borg works and how the whole infrastructure works is the idea that our virtual machines, running Kubernetes, really containers, spin up, does its thing, but again with the expectation that at any point in time it can just evaporate and spin up a new one. And that's why we've got things like live migration of virtual machines, which is unique in the industry, right? So if you've got a virtual machine running, it might move from one physical machine to another physical machine to another physical machine without you noticing it. That's just how it operates. And therefore we can pull plugs on things. We can, like this guy, pull out a rack, and it doesn't matter to the whole system because it's running. Now, let me bring it back to our world of Redis and databases. This stateless stuff is beautiful if you can have something that's somewhere but stateful, right? Which is where Redis comes in and where it's so incredibly valuable. In fact, just a quick side note for you who are presumably all in some other way relating to the world of storing data. I've got a personal interest in quantum computers. And what strikes me about the amazing things about quantum computers, one of the flip sides of that is it doesn't do storage very well at all. Right? If you got some data coming out of a quantum computer, you've got a problem how to deal with that instantaneously because it quickly disappears. So you need to store stuff really quickly. So good news, there's work for all of us, even in the quantum age, right? So just wanted to flag to you that there's definitely those opportunities. But let me get to the guts of this, right? Google loves Redis. We've got several products that we sell to customers that's using it, but equally we've got also a lot of internal deployments that are making use of it. Just like you have heard of others building things, if you want to build something that's really quick in terms of a database access, then there are few things that would beat something like Redis in an in-memory database. So let me just give you a quick view of some of this. We've heard about gaming platforms. Here's one of our customers, Faceit. They do gaming, and they do the sort of leaderboards and other services for game manufacturers. And you can imagine the kind of scale that they're struggling with, and this is running on our platform. And why? Because it's nice and fast, yes, as Redis is, but then they get the benefit of this network and the security and the expectation that even though things will fail, things can keep running. So one of the customers, but there are others as well. I've just had a great conversation with Thomas, who's going to be presenting a bit later, about the stuff they've built that's running on our cloud platform as well. So with that, I want to give you another view of what this looks like. Don't be fooled. It's not a slide trying to sell you our products and say, here's all the products, come and buy all of them. You are welcome to. But this is the standard slide that me and my team tend to present to our customers. And it shows here's all of our database offerings. But you'll notice that Cloud Memory Store is right on the left-hand side of the slide, which is really Redis. And in the middle, strategic partners at the top, you can see Redis. And on the right-hand side, you don't see Redis, but you can equally run Redis if you wanted to on just a virtual machine or on Kubernetes yourself, right? And let me just help you unpack those options a little bit. So the one on the left-hand side is what we call Memory Store for Redis. It is just vanilla Redis. It's dead easy to get going. And as soon as you got it going, you've got very limited control over it, but you don't have to touch it. You don't have to think about machines or number of units or anything else. It will just run and serve you. So if you got anything else running inside Google Cloud, that is the fastest place for you to just spin up a store and write stuff to it and read stuff from it as you wish at really high performance. So that's on the one extreme. And then with Redis Labs, we form a partnership, the other logo, that says if you want to get a fully managed enterprise version of this with all of their plugins that they want to offer you, then you can also do that just with a few clicks. And I'll briefly show you what that looks like in a moment. But then also, of course, on the full right-hand side of the slide is talking about if you wanted to run things in Kubernetes, you could do that, or on virtual machines, and that could be anything, but it could also be that you spin up some Redis instances there. And the benefit of doing that is you've got then absolute full control over it. You can hack the software before you compile it, but then also you have to manage it, right? So there's sort of a scale of control versus work. That's down to you to use. Yep, right. So with that, let me just quickly show you some of these things in action. So don't set your expectations too high. I'm not going to show you anything astonishingly new, but this is the console that you as a customer of Google Cloud Platform will have. And if I click on this list, it shows me all the things that's available. And if I go to storage, there's a bunch of things like Spanner and other things from Google you can have, but you can click on Memory Store and you can say, create me an instance, and you can give it a name. Let me name it Alfredus, sort of Redis and Alfred combined. Does that have to be lowercase? Doesn't like that, right? And I can give it, I can pick this. Currently only 2 versions we support in production. This, by the way, gives you service level agreement of 3 nines. You can see roughly there what it will cost, so $35 a month, US dollars. Who knows what that value would be after Brexit, but changing every day. If I want to, I can adjust the sizing of this, so I can pick any size I want, and it doesn't have to be a nice round number. You can pick whatever you want, and you can see as I adjust the gigabytes, the throughput also changes accordingly. But for simplicity and to save my credit card a little bit, I will stick with that. If I want to, I can also add some of the configuration flags to my Redis instance, and I can go create. And clearly that was as easy as I said it would be. There we go, and it's creating it. Right. So there's my instances, and I can connect to it, and I can start to use it. So that's the one extreme. This is the fully managed by Google. But it's worth saying this is the simple version, right? We offer two versions there. There's a non-replicated one and there's a replicated one. So this one gives you 3 nines. The standard version that's got some high availability gives you 5 nines, but only that, right? And you can't play with the knobs. That's about all you've got. It's worth saying you can, after it's started, you can go in and you can edit it to, for example, change the memory of a running machine, so you can go and just adjust it if you want to, right? So that's the one extreme. The other extreme is if you want to have the full-blown Redis enterprise experience. Let me give you a sense of what that looks like. So again, console, if I go to the marketplace, then I can go and do a search for Redis, and you'll see there's lots of options. There's some people that have built Kubernetes images for that, and some people that will host it for you, and some that's free images you can just download. But this one, right at the top, is provided by a partnership with Redis Labs, and I can click Manage, and there we go. In the same console, I can manage this. I've also got the same service contact number, so you can call up Google and complain about App Engine that might not be performing the way you want it to, but at the same point you can say, and my Redis instance on Redis Enterprise. So it's one point of contact for first line of support, one bill, so Google will send you the bill that includes all the bits. But let me just walk you a little bit further through this. So if I open up the Redis Management Console, which you might be a little bit more familiar with, then I can authenticate who I am. Yes, it's really me. And what's really nice about this is I can, saved. I'm just calling it saved because I feel like that's a good name for it. I can pick that it should be running here in London, West 2, and I can fiddle with some of the advanced options if you wanted to. Go next, by Grace, and pick some protocols if I wanted to memcache or not, and I can specify the persistence, and I can specify how much memory, and I can say I want, let's do 2.5 million operations per second. Save, go. And this will take a few minutes, and it will come back and it will show me what the configuration is that Redis Labs recommend and what that would cost. But you can imagine the beauty of this is without having to do much work, much heavy lifting, you can get your 2.5 million ops per second or whatever your configurations that you need. So there we go. It's suggesting that we need one of those, 4 of those, and that's going to cost you sort of $18 per hour for that. So a quick way to sort of get to a sense of what is available. So with that, I've shown you a little bit about what Google does, what's available from us. I know that some of you are using it. If you are interested in a further conversation, feel free to reach out to us or to Redis Labs, or just go to our website. There's a ton of really valuable resources that I just briefly want to point out. If you go to our cloud public website and you go to the Redis section, you will see some best practices on how to run it and several tips on what works and what doesn't work. I'm sure some of that will be familiar to you. Detail on the pricing, and there's a pricing calculator as well. It's a very nice blog that I found talking about how they've benchmarked some of the Redis stuff on GCP and the results they found. And there's also stuff like what's not available if you go to the memory store version versus some of the other options. So there's a whole ton of options there available for you to have a look at. So highly recommend, if you're interested, have a look at our website and go play further. So that's it from me. I wanted to give you a brief moment. If there's a question, I'm happy to pass on the question to somebody that might know. Going once, going twice. Yes?
Is there a list of the links that you click through there?
cloud.google.com/databases has got all of our databases. If you click on memory store for Redis, it's all there. Sorry, I should have come prepared with a nicer way to package the links. Right, thank you very much. Have a good day.